Welcome to Edmonds Election Watch 2015. I'm your host, Teresa Wippel. In the studio, we have Dave Teitzel, who's running for Edmonds City Council Position 5. Dave, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good to see you.
This is the time when you talk a little bit about yourself, provide some background, and also why you're running for City Council.
Sure, you bet. Well, I'm a Western Washington person. I was born and raised in the Sumner area, down near Puyallup, and we moved to Edmonds after I graduated from college. I went to Washington State University, by the way, so I'm a proud Coug. And,
This isn't where the Go Coug sound comes in, right?
No, absolutely. But we moved here in 1987, before we had kids. Both of our daughters were born and raised here in Edmonds, so our roots run deep here. We care about Edmonds. My kids went to Madrona School for grade school and middle school. They're both Yost Penguins on the swim team, so we enjoyed many happy hours at Yost Pool. So we love Edmonds. It's a great place. It's a safe place. We've got great views, great amenities, and we plan to stay here for the duration now.
Okay. And remind me again of you worked for Quest Communications, is
I
that right,
did.
before you
Quest
retired?
Communications is
Yeah.
the telephone company.
Right.
I was there for 35 years.
Okay.
I retired in late 2008 as a director in the public policy department, and I had a 14-state territory that I covered for Quest and represented the company in roughly 100 regulatory proceedings in that
Okay.
period of time.
Sounds like that would be something you could somehow apply to the City Council. I've heard them talk about a few of those.
Well, I think so. As a director in public policy, we got involved in a lot of very controversial and complex issues. There was always a public interest component, and I think that training does come to play in council. And I was trained as a witness when I testified for the company to always be truthful and honest and logical in presenting my testimony, both in written form and on the stand. I think that also plays well in the council role.
Okay. One of the things that I have seen on your campaign signs and heard you talk about in the past has been your theme of your campaign, which is
Sure.
be included. And tell me more about what that means.
Well, sure. Early on, late last year, when I determined that I would like to get involved in a council role, I started attending council meetings, and I determined through that exposure that quite often there weren't a lot of people from the fringes of Edmond, the Edmonds area, such as the very northern city limits, up near Highway 99, Furdale, places like that. Folks just don't typically come down to council meetings and let their views be heard. So I want to make sure that we're including those folks' voices in our governance process. That's the geographic component. We have a demographic component also. We have a changing demographic mix here in Edmonds. We have an increasing Asian population, increasing Latino population. We have a lot of folks here that have moved from small African countries like Gambia, Ethiopia, Eritrea, places like that, India, Pakistan. So we've got a very wide range of people here now. And in fact, the non-Caucasian segment of our population is over 20% now and growing. We need to recognize that and make sure those folks' voices are heard too in our governance process. That's what be included means to me.
Okay. What do you think, as you're looking about, being on the city council and some of the challenges that the city is facing, what do you think are the top 3 challenges that Edmonds will be looking at in the next 5 years?
I think the top challenge is growth. Our population is growing. It grew by 500 people last year, over 500 actually. So if that rate continued for a 10-year period, we have between 5,000 and 6,000 new residents here. So the question is, where do we house these people? We're a fairly built-out community, so we need to look at redeveloping areas, possibly along Highway 99, where you have easy transportation options available. Obviously, Westgate is an area that we're looking at now to redevelop, with some mixed-use buildings where you've got retail on the bottom floor and 2 or 3 floors of residential housing units above. I think Five Corners is a great place where we have potential for redevelopment. So we need to look at those places and get housing underway that can accommodate that growth. And so that's one. Our budget is a big concern to me. I've looked at the budget in detail. If the run rates continue, our expenses will exceed revenues in about 2019, and the city will go in the red. We need to find ways to diversify our economy, get new revenue coming into the city and new tax revenue. You're probably aware that we rely heavily on auto sales here. we need to diversify that mix of businesses along Highway 99, so we have a broader array of businesses that won't be so subject to downturns in the economy. Obviously, when people have less money in a recession, they stop buying cars. That will affect our tax revenue. And I think the third thing would be environmental concerns. We need to make sure that we protect Edmonds' environment as population grows here. Do things like get after the daylighting Willow Creek, restore our marsh, protect our streams that run through our city, and improve air quality here.
Okay. So we've got some issues that I certainly have noticed seem to, I'm just going to call them hot button issues because
Sure.
whenever they get talked about, there always seems to be strong opinions on either side. So I'd like to get your take on a few of these
You
as
bet.
somebody who's a council candidate. Sunset Avenue Walkway. The council's actually going to be looking at that a little bit more closely and talking about that more in the near future. Of course, there's a temporary configuration there. There was parallel parking, now there's diagonal parking. They've changed the pathway, paved it, made it more of a multi-use. Some people love it, some people hate it. What is your thinking at this point about what we should do with Sunset?
You bet. Well, it's still in the trial period at this point, so they're still, the city's still gaining input, seeking input from citizens about what they like and don't like. So there will be some changes. I will tell you that I use Sunset Avenue often as a dog owner. I walk my dogs down there. And I will say when it's wet and rainy, it's nice to walk on a paved surface and not on the grass and mud. Keeps the dog's feet much cleaner. Having said that, that's one positive I think about it. A drawback, I believe, is the angled parking. I have parked down there on a nice day when all the spots were full, and I parked in the middle. And I will say when you back up, you can't see oncoming traffic. I think that's very dangerous. You can't see traffic nor pedestrians crossing there. So that makes that lane very narrow there. I think the angled parking probably is something we don't want to have long term. That'd be my opinion. I'm also concerned about the mixed use of pedestrians, people with strollers, people jogging, and bicyclists sharing that paved path. I think it's too narrow for that many uses. In my opinion, I think we should keep the bicyclists in the one-way lane going north and reduce the speed limit to something like 15 miles per hour, so both bicyclists and cars can enjoy the views at a safe speed. And that would avoid pedestrian-bicycle conflicts on that lane. Those are a couple things I think that we could do to improve it.
Okay, very good. Another one that seems to be constant at recent council has been the Playfields surface up at the old Woodway High School.
Sure.
The decision was made by the Edmonds School Board to go ahead and put down what is known as a crumb rubber surface, which is recycled tires. For anybody
Sure.
who's watching and may not know this issue, I feel like I've been covering it for years or months anyway. But
I understand.
But there were concerns by some residents and parents living near the fields and people sending their kids to school there that there were some possible environmental hazards, some health hazards. They tried to convince the school board to change their minds on the infill that was being put in there, and the school board went ahead and it's being replaced. But the city council is still kind of exploring, what their options are in terms of the future of, fields like this and what could be done. And have you taken a look at the issue? Do you have any opinions on it at this point? As if you were on the council, what do you think you'd be thinking about that?
I do have opinions, and let me say I've been following this issue closely for some time. I've been to all the meetings at council when the public's commented about this. I followed the issue in the news media, all the commentary that's been issued about the issue. Personally, I think, let me say first, I respect the school board. I respect Verdant. I respect the city council. I think all those entities have the best interest of our population at heart and try to make the best decisions possible. You're aware that both the school board and Verdant have looked at scientific studies about crumb rubber, and they say they've done due diligence. And I believe that they think they have done due diligence about the risk of crumb rubber. Having said that, we do know there are toxins in crumb rubber, and kids are going to be using those playfields, kids and adults. And I am aware that other districts like South Kitsap, I think the Kennedy High School down in Buren, has gone to an alternative product. I think we should at least be investigating what data they looked at to determine they wanted to go with something like cork and coconut husk rather than crumb rubber, and see what that science says and what it said to them, and what their decision process was. So I would certainly urge our school board in the district, before the crumb rubber is laid, to at least take that step and investigate what facts and data they use to make their decision, and see if at this late hour we could possibly make a change. I personally am concerned about the wide range of toxins that are in crumb rubber. I think some could be released into the environment and ingested by athletes, and that is not a good thing, obviously.
Okay. Another thing that and I haven't counted myself to know what the numbers are, but there have been folks who have said that the city council seems to have an awful lot of executive sessions these days before or after their council meetings to discuss, and they're legally allowed to do that, to discuss certain things, real estate and employment, I think, labor negotiations and contracts.
Issues, right,
yeah.
you bet.
But those government watchers who've been keeping track say, gosh, there are so many, and why do they need them, and all of that. And I guess it goes to a bigger picture kind of feeling of trust, People wonder what's being talked about that they don't know about, which feeds into, kind of that perception that something's being hidden. And again, you're not on the council, you don't know what's necessarily going on behind closed doors.
That's
but,
correct.
As somebody who could be coming in new, how would you approach that issue if you have constituents who would, have those concerns?
And I understand the concern. Executive sessions typically involve issues that may have legal overtones, and obviously those need to be closely held. If they're negotiating a contract, obviously that needs to be closely held. Maybe a real estate purchase, wouldn't be appropriate to let the council's thinking about what they're doing about a real estate transaction be released before the transaction is actually placed. So those things need to be protected closely, I think. I understand the concern. I do believe that our council and our government in general is really quite open. They invite citizens to come in and comment on virtually any issue on council meetings. And as I mentioned, I attend most council meetings, and I personally witness that. I've commented myself, and I appreciate that opportunity. So I understand there's a trust issue with the city here. We need to do what we can to engender trust between the city and citizens, and also between council and the mayor's staff. I think there may be some trust issues there we need to address. I will tell you, I'm a glass half full kind of guy, so I tend to believe that we should trust. We should trust the city, we should trust the citizens. The council and the mayor's staff should trust one another as well, unless it's proven that there's a reason they shouldn't do that. But I believe that on balance, we're a very open city and a trustworthy city. So I don't really get too concerned about the executive sessions. I know there's a good reason for them.
Okay. And along those lines, and I've actually raised this issue with a few different candidates in different cities. It's not like this is just Edmonds. How does a government entity increase citizen involvement when you've got constituents who are just so busy with their daily lives? Parents who are barely making, getting their kids into bed before they're exhausted and certainly not thinking about going to a council meeting or a school board meeting. Do you have any ideas I know that in the past, council members have tried to have neighborhood meetings and people don't really come to those. And have any thoughts on ways to engage the community in different ways to do that, to solve that problem?
Well, certainly. And let me just tell you that when I started my campaign early on, I started doorbelling North Edmonds. I'm gradually working my way south. I'm down to about Main Street now, so I've covered quite a bit of territory. But up in North Edmonds, we have the Meadowdale Community Center. And I think, as I've talked to the residents up there, they don't terribly feel included in the governance process, and would like to hear more from council. So I think, at least speaking for the North Edmonds residents, they would like to have us come up to that community center and have more frequent outreach, whether you call it a town hall or a fireside chat or whatever it might be. Let's make these things casual, not a presentation to the folks. We would explain what's happening with the city, some of the major issues, but primarily have it be a Q&A session to let them ask questions. And we can do that around town, I think, more often. So I think we need to make sure those are publicized, that people have the opportunity to come and just sit down informally and chat. So I think that's a very good idea we should be pursuing. Obviously, people that are busy have the chance to watch Channel 21, and watch the televised coverage of the council sessions. I will have to say, just to be fair, I've done that myself, and I find it very difficult to do. It's much easier for me to sit there in person and watch the proceedings and take all the proceeding in, where you can see all the parties at one time. I find it difficult to watch on TV. That's my personal opinion.
Right.
So that's certainly an option. And then inviting folks talking to those folks about their concerns. Same thing with our Gambian community here. So I think having council members, either individually or in groups, small groups, go out to meet with those segments of our population and show that we can be trusted, we're here to hear them, and try to address their needs. I think that has power.
Well, now it's your time to be able to address the voters directly and let them know why they should vote for you, and I'll let you take it away.
Great, excellent. Well, I appreciate the chance to talk to you tonight, and I am excited about Edmonds. It's a great place. As I mentioned earlier, we raised our children here, and my wife and I live here. We're blessed to live here in this beautiful area, and I want to do what I can at this point to help the process, and I believe I can. I've got a very deep and varied business background. I've got experience in budgeting, marketing, and public policy. I've both been a member of teams, I've managed teams with divergent opinions and personalities. We certainly have that here in council, and I think we need to work collaboratively to get things done for the city. And I honestly think we can. We can do that. We can serve you better, and I certainly do plan to serve you better. I will say that I have no political aspirations other than serving on council, so I'll do the best I can for you as a council member. I don't plan to leverage this into a run for mayor or senator or anything like that. It would strictly be serving you as a member of council, and I'm excited about that opportunity, and I will do the very best I can for you.
Very good. Dave, thanks so much for coming in, and I wish you the best of luck in your campaign.
You bet. Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.